Welcome, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Global Social Witnessing Call. And it's special to be here with you all for this topic today. It feels timely, it feels necessary, and it feels good to share space with you all. And Sunita, please.
Sorry, Kosha, you will need to unmute again.
That's fine. I can do that. No problem. Yeah, and I see, Sunita, that there's still people in the waiting room, right? But you're letting them come in. So that's a wonderful moment before we even start in to welcome Sunita back, who is a very, very close, intimate core member of our Pocket Project team, and she has done amazing things this summer. She has given birth to the most beautiful little baby in the world. And we love Oreofe, our team baby. And Sunita is back for the first time to tech host. And she is also a co-host for our upcoming Climate Consciousness Summit. So just a special welcome to you, Sunita. And thank you for being here with us. And we are here today for our call where we're going to look at the climate crisis, about how we can embed ourselves in our body, in the living systems. Yeah, and as we look at how we can embed ourselves, we also look at how our disconnect from ourselves, from each other, from the earth, the pain that causes us, but also how this disconnect gives birth to the great crises of our time, amongst them the climate crises. We want to invite each of us here tonight to bring our curiosity, our compassion, our love to the places of disconnect within us. And we want to explore whether we can bring our witnessing capacity to notice the gaps, to notice where the gaps are, especially in regards to the natural world, and to open up to what might become visible within us, and also maybe also in relatedness to the natural world as we explore these gaps. And what does it feel to bring our sensitivity and intimacy to the places where it's easy for us to relate, but also to the places where the gaps show up? As Thomas Hübel often says, the places where the disconnect shows up are the places that need our attention and our love, especially. And tonight we're going to be especially feeling into the waters of the world. So Jens Riese, who I'll introduce a bit more later, has had a few years of his life that he spent as a marine biologist, and he has a very, very deep and close connection to the oceans of the world. So we'd love you to just invite yourself, if you like, by writing in where you're calling from, and maybe especially which body of water is close to you. This might be a body of water that you love deeply, or a river, a lake, a bay that runs close to you. So I'm in Scotland right now and close to the Bay of Findhorn, where we have around between 12 and 14,000 wild geese here for the winter. So I love the Findhorn Bay. Yeah, just letting us know where you're calling from. Yeah, and we can see the Baltic Sea, the Mediterranean, the Bay of Biscay, the Yellowstone River, the North Pacific Ocean, Brooklyn Creek, Lake of Constance, River Aller, Elbe, Nova Scotia, the Bay of Fundy, the Attenborough Nature Reserve on the River Trent. Oh, Kate, sounds so lovely. Blackpool and the Irish Sea, the lakes of Upper Austria, Hualalai Mountain volcano. Yeah, wow. And these are just a few of the ones that I can read, so please keep reading. And let's just bow down to the waters that flow around us and flow between us, because there's something very amazing about the waters of the world, which is that they connect all of us, and in the end, they flow right through us. So, yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, and we'll start with a short attunement. This is to also prepare a collective body for the space we're entering together, because this is a practice that none of us do alone. We do it together, and we know that we are able to feel more, to sense more, to hone our witnessing capacity because of our nervous systems connecting in the shared space. So let's just take a moment to realize deeply, yes, this is a Zoom space, and still we are here together. And maybe while we do our attunement, we could just shift over to the gallery view so that we can see each other more. Yes, here is our shared body. Just taking a moment to welcome our shared body tonight. Yeah, and then you might want to close your eyes. Allow air as it shows up in your body through your breath to touch you. The atmosphere of the planet, carbon, oxygen, as it shows up in your breath. And just taking a moment to welcome atmosphere, air, breath. And then as we deepen our connection to soil, welcoming earth in this body. Maybe feeling the fire of our digestion, the waters of our bloodstream, and the soil, the minerals in each of our cells. Allowing the gravitational force of earth to bring us home. To allow our minds to land. So often when we think our ways to solutions, we lift out of our bodies. So maybe we can let that go for tonight with a sigh and allow our brains, our nervous systems to relax more deeply into the earth that is our body. and acknowledging that this body is part of Earth, comes from Earth, returns to Earth, currently lives a sensitive surface of Earth. And just allow your feet, the soles of your feet, to rummage down a bit into the upper layers of earth soil. And it might be that you're sitting above the earth in your room, but just allow your feet to reach down into earth. And as we do that together tonight, we'll remember the evolution that we each carry within us. Remembering that there is planktonness in our DNA, that we carry fishness deep within ourselves, birdness, mammalianness, humanness, treeness, oceanness. And just see whether you can settle yourself more deeply into this immense living system that is your body, that goes back through time. And maybe you have a faint sense also about where in your body you feel warm and connected. Where is there streaming? You might notice the streaming, the grounding, the relaxing, the presencing movements increase as we come present and ground together. And we also want to stay wide awake for those places in us where we might feel tense or lifted out or a bit overwhelmed and numb. And let's just see whether we can embrace both. Bring both present. When we acknowledge the places where we're absent, where we are absenting, contracting, and when we stay in those places with love and care, we can often melt one step deeper. Yeah, and with that, I'll just say a few more words of global social witnessing. And you're very welcome to just stay in this inner space. connecting to the group body, our hosting space, through your inner body. Or you may choose to open your eyes and look at the group, notice others, whatever feels more comfortable to you. Global social witnessing is our human capacity to mindfully attend to global events with our embodied awareness. And what we've been practicing a lot in the past decades is witnessing world events through our minds, by reading the media, by a quick download of mental information and numbers. What we will do here tonight and what we do in global social witnessing is to allow the world to land in us, which it does anyway, but very often we are not there to meet it, to notice what the inner body space, the inner world space is within us that mirrors and brings compassion to the events in the world. So tonight, as we listen to information and we sense into earth, water, ocean, we will also keep a large part of our awareness in our interiority, refining our internal sense perception, our ability to stay with the sensations that are touched and appear within our bodies, our nervous systems, our emotions. And as we attend world events, we might meet the edge within us. So where we are hurt or we meet an overwhelming pain in the world, we might not be able to resonate freely, to relate freely. And we might notice that some of what we hear tonight might meet us in a place where we become hyperactivated, stressed, numb, where we separate ourselves to feel safer, to be safer. And in this way, the world teaches us about ourselves. As we get to know and heal our inner realities, more of the world can take place in us. And also, the warmer and more alive we become to how the world is landing in us, the more alive and warm we become to the events out there. We interact with the world as a resonance body, a musical instrument that can hum in grief or in joy. We are a small movement within the bigger movement of life. And through that, we strengthen our global immune system. Our power as individuals, as humanity, as groups, to listen to the world and respond from a place of attunement and deep precision that allows us to pick up our agency and become caretakers of life. So I am grateful to all of us who are here on this journey today, because as I said before, it is our shared collective body that allows us to do this work. And I'm also deeply grateful to my dear friend Jens Riese, who is here with us today. And I just want to say a few words about Jens. Jens has a long-standing passion for nature and social change and has approached that calling through different modalities. His first approach was an academic one. He studied biology, environmental management, and spent 5 years as a researcher. And I've heard that he both attempted researching right into the origins of life and also spent times on the oceans as a marine biologist. And after a while, he was called into the real world and the real world from the ivory tower and worked as a consultant to many companies, NGOs, and 20 governments around the world on sustainable development. During that, he saw some things that work and many things that don't work, and got more and more interested in the inner aspects of change. So he then trained as coach, as trauma therapist, and workshop facilitator. And these form his primary work now. But Jens' key interest remains our living connection to the living planet, and the question of how to sense and align ourselves with the evolutionary impulse of our time. Jens has been studying with Thomas Hübel for many years. He's a collective trauma integration facilitator in the Pocket Project. And Jens and I are currently co-facilitating an international lab exploring the collective trauma of the climate crisis. And with that, I hand over to you, Jens. Thank you for being with us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kasia, for inviting me, and thanks all for being here and bringing also the rivers and oceans and lakes that you mentioned into this meeting. So when Kasia asked me to join this call, I had an immediate yes, but I didn't know exactly what angle to take. And that only became clear today. I have a daily practice of being in nature and swimming in a river all year long. And I was swimming in the river, and the river called me and asked me to connect to the water body, and through the water body to the topic of climate change. So that's what inspired what we will do now. So I invite you to close your eyes again. Turn the attention inside. Reconnect to that beautiful attunement that Kasia led us into. Maybe if you like, move your body from left to right. Be like a seaweed. Just feel the water moving in your body. Like a vessel that carries water, you feel the water moving left to right. And as we do in these calls, we sense in our bodies and we bring in facts and see, okay, how do these facts land? And one fact that we know is there's about 40 to 50 liters of water in this body. Our body, more than half of our body is made up of water. Maybe we can feel that water moving. You can either keep moving or come to a rest. And let's sense into the vitality of that water in our bodies. It has so many vital functions. When we feel flow, the blood flowing, pulsing in our bodies, that's water. It transports oxygen, transports nutrients, waste products. Feeling the function as a connective agent, the motorways in our body. Regulates our temperature. It's a building block for the metabolism of our body. And so many other vital functions. So maybe just sensing into the vitality, these essential functions that water plays in our body. Just noticing, is that just a thought, is that a fact that stays in our mind? Is that something we can feel? There's no good or bad, just noticing to what extent we can sense that. Sense into and as our water body. And here's an interesting thing. The average lifetime of the water in our body is about 2 weeks. We take up and excrete about 2.5 to 3 liters of water every day. So water is in a constant flux. Kasha mentioned we're connected to the water body, and we literally are. The water that's in our body now, only a few weeks ago, was groundwater. Maybe a few months ago was rain, clouds, rivers, ocean, blood of other animals, plants. Just tuning in with that. How the water that's leaving our body reconnects to the water body of Earth. Through that, we literally are the water body of the Earth. And again, seeing, how does that land? Do we feel this connection? Or is that a thought? And through our connection to the water body, let's connect to water bodies, body, and tune in with the oceans. Maybe there's a memory of being at the ocean, in the ocean, the salt water that's still present in our tears, that has the same saltiness as salt water. Maybe we can even tap into the deep memory that that is where life on Earth began. A lot of the early evolution of life was in the oceans. We have a deep connection to oceans. The oceans hold about 70% of the biodiversity of Earth. Extremely rich in life still today. And that's attuned to one ecosystem that's particularly rich in biodiversity, which is coral reefs. And some of us know coral reefs, have snorkeled, dived in coral reefs. Probably all of us have seen images, movies. So let's tune in with a healthy coral reef. These bright colors, this enormous wealth of biodiversity, corals, algae, invertebrates, fish. And then let's move our attention to coral reefs that are suffering. This is one impact of climate change through the rise in temperature and the increasing acidification through higher CO2 concentrations. They make the oceans more acidic. Coral reefs are suffering and are dying. And maybe you have seen images of dead coral reefs, bleached coral reefs. Let's feel that maybe as ocean we can, through us being the water body, being the ocean. Or maybe as a fellow species, fellow living being who loves and appreciates oceans and coral reefs. So again, bringing in a bit of science. When the temperature rises, corals expel the algae that are living in them. So corals actually have their color and their richness through a symbiosis with algae. The algae give most of the energy that corals have, produce most of the energy. When the temperature rises, these algae produce toxic substances, and the coral reefs protect themselves and expel them. By doing that, they lose their lifeline. And if that happens once and it doesn't last too long, they can recover. But given that it has happened so often and it's happening constantly, we've lost 50% of our coral reefs since 1950. So just see, how does that land? Half of all coral reefs lost. And we're not recovering. We're not on a path of recovery. We're on a path of losing coral reefs year to year. By middle of this century, we might have lost 90% of our coral reefs. 90% of coral reefs dead. Noticing how that lands in us. And with a few deep breaths, let's leave the coral reefs and follow the oceans north to the Arctic. Let's tune in with that ecosystem, the Arctic ice. which is an important habitat for polar bears. Polar bears need the ice shelf for hunting, for resting, for mating. One fact that 75% of all summer ice has melted, has disappeared since 1970, since the start of recording it. 75%, 3/4. And that sends into the impact on polar bears. They lose their hunting grounds, their platforms for hunting, need to stay on the land longer. Maybe you've seen images or you can tune in with polar bears starving. Polar bears swimming longer and longer distances and losing energy, especially the young and the old ones drowning because they can't find ice. Let's maybe tune in with one small polar bear swimming and not finding ice. Until the life energy is lost and it dies. Maybe let's also sense into its mother witnessing the death of its baby. Not being able to do anything about it. Again, let's see how that touches us, how present we can stay with that. To what extent we might need a bit of distance, a bit of numbing, maybe going mental to deal with this experience. Let's reconnect to the ocean that is hosting this life and also the decay of life, the suffering of life, the crying of life. And let's reconnect to our water body and our bodies. And our inner experience. The water in our bodies that holds that experience. That and many other types of experiences, only touched on two. And before we come back and open the room for sharing, let's spend a moment reflecting on this journey, seeing the edges of our ability to connect, to stay in embodiment as we are experiencing, witnessing. What was it like to connect to our water body, to feel our water body, through that to connect to the water body, the earth? And what is it like to witness and sense the damage, the dying, the suffering of life in that water body? Where could we stay connected and sense it? Where did we need a bit of distance? Maybe followed mentally, maybe not even that, maybe fell asleep, started to get distracted, and just noticing our edge in this. And then taking a few more deep breaths, maybe connecting again to the aliveness in our body. And over the next breaths, at your pace, starting to open the eyes and reconnect to the group. Yeah, thank you. And that over to you, Kosha. Maybe you want to invite a few people and hold the first group for sharing and pass it over to me. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jens. And maybe we can just stay in the gallery view for a moment longer. Because that was a lot, right? I don't know how it was for you, but it's a lot. And yeah, just to stay together for a moment in this question of how do we feel these things? Is it possible to stay connected? And maybe we can even just, if all of us, I can see quite a few of you on the screen, of course, not everyone, but if we could just lift our thumbs for a moment and just like, if you feel you can really stay connected, if you feel like, wow, it's not possible for me to stay connected. I know Zoom has this new thing that I get a thumbs up in the corner when I move my thumb. But if you could just show with your thumb, how connected did you feel? Yeah, and I see quite a few like this, quite a few moving like the water in our bodies, and quite a few really like this. Yeah. And if we allow ourselves that, if we don't feel like it should be different. And I also would love to invite us just for a moment to notice whether we were connected to emotions. Like there's the body, the physical response, and then there's an emotional response. We might have felt grief. We might have felt fear, pure fear. Yeah, fear, Francesca. Yeah, that's great. I think it's really helpful if a few of you just write into the chat what you noticed in yourself. Yeah, the incredible vulnerability of interconnectedness, sorrow, perplexity. And we can also just feel into that word perplexity. It also carries a sense of like overwhelm, confusion, like, how can this happen? Frustration, pain in my belly, grief, grief, exhaustion, heartbreak, love, solar plexus flattering, wonder, awe, aliveness, terror, helplessness, apathy. Gary, also having done the research, yeah, yeah, and the strength of I couldn't stay with the ice bear. I couldn't stand the deep pain of being with the ice bear. I couldn't stand the ice bear. And also to acknowledge that we're often afraid of these feelings, and therefore there is a wisdom in feeling less. There is maybe not wisdom, maybe we say intelligence in feeling less. And here today, we're really just to explore this arena together and explore what comes up. Is there a place where we can connect as water to water, as earth to earth? What are the emotions that come up? How can we become the sensitive tissue of Mother Earth that responds not from a place of dominance, but from a place of sensitive agency? Yeah, Ingela, beautiful. I hope to get back to a safe place. Yeah, and that describes maybe a lot of what all of us feel at this moment. We're all hoping. There's a part in us that just longs to get back to a safe place and not be where we are. So we'd like to open the space and hear your voices. Today is a space where a witnessing call where we'd love to hear many voices, where we really see ourselves as part of the witnessing soft tissue of the earth, and your voices are invited. And it doesn't matter whether you're super sensitive or super numb. Whatever is here is part of who we are and is welcome. And we invite you to raise your hands if you're willing to share. And we'll have like 2-minute sharings. So it becomes like a kaleidoscope where we hear different voices. And we'll invite 3 people at a time on screen. So Shan, we'll just wait for 2 more people to raise their hands. And every time if a person is shared more than 2 minutes, I'll just raise my hand just to let you know this is not a you have to end now, but just to let's bring it together and move on to the next voice in our body of listening. Yeah, so maybe there's a 3rd person who would be willing to share. Yeah, good. Let's start with you 3, Shan, Francesca, Angela. Hey. Yeah, and if you just share for 2 minutes and then stay online until the others have also shared. So we're like a small witnessing body within the bigger witnessing body. Shan, over to you.
Thank you so much. Deeply, deeply grateful for our collective presence here and our witnessing. I was really moved by the meditations, and I think for me, I've witnessed so much destruction in the oceans because I lived very close to the ocean for many years out in the wilderness, and I have observed a huge decline and have felt a lot of grief and really didn't know what to do with it. And I feel I'm really moving into a deeper appreciation of collective grieving, and that we must grieve collectively. It's not my grief, it's our grief. And one thing that's helped me a lot is the phrase "not without a blessing," you know, and I look at all the life forms that are disappearing, and I just think, well, they've been our companions for thousands of years, and we can't let them go without a blessing. And this collective witnessing is an opportunity to not only embrace all the aspects of our feelings, the ones that want to shut down as well as the ones that are opening up, but it's in that respect for the kaleidoscope of feelings. I think for me, it's the underlying current that keeps my heart open toward love is not without a blessing. So I think that's what I wanted to share today.
Yeah, beautiful. That was 2 minutes, and maybe we can just stay for a moment with the grief. And I was interviewing Martin Prechtel for the interview, who speaks about how our grief is really an expression of our love, and how your love for life and for the ocean speaks through you. And somehow, as you allow the grief and the love to be here, it feels as if you become, it's as if I can feel your connectedness flowing out, Shan. Yeah, thank you. Now over to you, Francesca.
As I was going through that meditation, that guidance, I really did allow myself to be with what was being offered. And I did feel triggered into fear. And I really felt the connection between the coral reefs and the Arctic to me, like very far away, but very close. And there was a lot of fear. I mean, when I travel, I usually travel to the islands. And I've known about this intellectually, but I've always felt like I couldn't do anything about it, but I also couldn't even feel it either. So as I've been doing this healing work and really connecting to the sensations in my body and feeling the feelings of terror and loneliness and anger in my body, I committed myself to stay with the exploration as opposed to push away from it. It was intentional. And often there are times where I really do need to disconnect and not expose myself to, I can't take a lot of this, but in this group together, I really wanted to be with it. And I do have a lot of fear of the future. And I really love what someone put about loving Mother Nature or Mother Earth in the chat. And just, there's also some anger I feel that, and I'm included here, right? Because I contributed to this through my own unconsciousness. But just the unconscious, I'm angry at the unconsciousness of humanity that we've seen messages along the way. There have been red flags. Thank you. And we've not listened. We've not listened.
Hmm. Yeah, thank you, Francesca. Hmm. Thank you. And it touched me today. Jens and I were both in a short conversation with Thomas, where Thomas Hübel, where he said, you know, if we were able to do it differently, we would. We would. So also to really be with what is and accept this is where we are as humans. You know, we're not right now. We're not able, we're doing what we can as a collective. So there's also a real kind of the acceptance of, wow, this is where we are. Yeah, thank you, Francesca. Angela. Hmm.
Taking a second to, yeah, just be with the Francesca's transmission and your conversation with Thomas and what's alive for me now. Yeah, I just want to have some wordless time. My body may want to make some tears. I want to share those with the group. Yeah. My body wants to make another wave, and I want to do that. Honor.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel how my vessel, from life, ancestry, early attachment, right? There's certain narrow parts of my vessel. And I feel in these group spaces when the tears come, I feel the blessing from the ground of like shaking and, letting movement happen where in a safe, beautiful way. Yeah.
Hmm.
I track how the energy moves my eyes. So flowers on a tree here on the Huala Mountain. Ocean. I can share the ocean down. It's close to the color of the sky, so
Hmm.
really grateful for the space. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Angela. And yeah, I think we don't know right now. Well, I think the first thing often when we start feeling is for grief to be felt, and that it's like the gate opening. Yeah, and I loved how I could see your dignity in how you cried with us, that there was a dignity in you. bringing back dignity to grief. Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Shan. Thank you, Francesca. Thank you, Angela. And I also just want to acknowledge, that some of you have been with us on this journey for a long time, and it's beautiful to grow together. Yeah. And with that, let's come back to the group, and I'll hand it over to Jens we'll take turns to have 3 people share at a time. So over
Yeah,
to you, Jens.
thank you. Let's see. Would love for a few more of you to share. And while we're waiting for another group of 3 to come up, to also just share how touched I am, from the sharing. Shan, Francesca, Angela. The depth of the emotions, the connection, the blessing for the species lost. And Angela, your tears made me cry, helped me to cry. And when I felt the tears, I felt that power of the grief, and there was ocean coming out of my eyes. It's salty water, and this also the transformative power of grief and of crying. Thank you. Okay, so we have Ludmilla. Who else would like to share? And I also invite some of you to share who maybe had difficulties connecting. Some of you who had your thumbs like this or down. That's very welcome, and that's very valuable, and it's a gift also for you. Yeah, Enrique, thank you. Maybe one more? Anybody else who would like to share, whether it was thumbs down or so, up? Let's start with Ludmilla and Enrique and Sunita. If anybody else, or the whole group, if anybody else feels you want to come in, please raise your hand, and Sunita, bring in another person if you want to. So Ludmilla, you want to
Hello,
share?
everybody. Hello, Jan and Kosha. Thank you for that few moments for me to ground. My heart is pounding, but I can breathe now. I am deeply resonating with these waves of helplessness and despair I hear. What people are sharing. And I want to share a story. In 2023, I was walking to work downtown Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, and every morning I was meeting all the gentlemen who was walking towards Stanley Park and having a bag and keep picking garbage. And it really landed in me. I'm grieving that I never asked his name. He's probably not on this planet anymore, but he influenced my life deeply. I lived and worked in many places on a beautiful planet, but since then I started my journey path, my practice. I keep picking garbage wherever I am. I have reusable bag, and it's really deep. It starts from me and them, and then I end up we, because there are no me and them. There are we on this planet. That's what I wanted to share. This helps me to get out of this, oh, I cannot do anything, to I can do something, and I'm touching my planet, even a little bit at the time, and this huge transformation from, this anger and me and them, and I end up with us.
Mm.
And I feel deeply what Kosha shared, what Thomas said, that if we could, we would.
Yes. Thank you, Ludmila. And for bringing in the we, the if we could, we would, and owning that we, that moment of transformation from them to us.
Yeah.
And also the other important thing you brought in was the agency. This is us, and it's our agency that makes a difference. And out of agency, there's future, there's hope, there's evolution. And by you, I can feel you picking up the garbage and how that matters.
Yeah.
Thank you. Enrique.
I want to share the images that moved inside with the meditation. But first I want to start saying that the tears of Angela moved something that was like stuck. And I want to recognize this. And this thing stuck has to do, last night I was reading a report of some official of the United Nations about what's going on in Gaza, and it was horrifying. So usually I sleep very well, but today at 5:30 or 6, I was up. I woke up, and I think it has to do with this horror that I was reading in that report. So when in the meditation talking about the coral reefs and all that, I was all the attention of the world is going there in Gaza, and everybody says that the world is a danger place, so we have to spend more money in weapons, and so it's nobody's paying attention to what's going in the nature, or almost nobody. So I was feeling this madness. What's happening? And the image of the polar bear, the baby polar bear and its mother, for me, it was the image of a mother I saw in the streets of Gaza that was shot by snipers, and she was with her baby, but the neighbors wanted to collect her, but the snipers were shooting, so they had to throw ropes to get the well, I don't know if she was alive or dead, to get the corpse. And well, this is what's been moving inside me, and this is I want to share, and also say again thanks to Angela, because I mean tears moved something.
Thank you, Enrique. Let's spend a minute taking that in. There's the human suffering and nature, and it's one. And it's not always easy to connect the two. And when we hold a lot of human suffering, how that can also block us from even opening ourselves up to the suffering in nature. Again, how Angela's tears opened up something. It was your ability also in this group space to hold the human suffering and the crying of Mother Earth. and its beings. And I feel particularly touched by the mothers and also the fathers.
For me, it's not that easy to cry. Usually tears don't come to my eyes. So to be in this space and seeing people crying, it's also, I just can't say that something that was stuck. I felt like a sort of movement, maybe I don't know very well what, but it was.
Yeah, Francis Weller, who does a lot of grief work, talks about this, how we're not meant to grieve alone and cry alone, you know, and how it needs these spaces where we can grieve together. I also felt that. Thank you, Enrique. Vera.
Thank you very much for these deep meditations and all of the sharings we heard. And for me, it was an extremely physical experience. As soon as you started bringing up images of coral reefs, I almost couldn't stay with the beautiful pictures. My inner pictures were, you know, the pictures of bleached reefs almost pushed the beautiful ones out of the frame. And it, as soon as that started to happen, I really felt like as if, it's hard to describe, as if in my chest, some interior parts were really losing contact to my outline, my physical outline. This contraction really expanded then up to my throat and down into my belly, and it was really like crouching down on the inside, but from the outside, looking from the outside, nothing had changed. And I was really kind of stuck in this painful situation, which was, it felt really absurd. And then with the polar bear images coming up, I really had to cry, but had to really to get some private space to do that. And so I shut off my camera. Then I reconnected. And only when Angela shared her tears, it became a natural flow again. And it was only then that the whole process seemed to come to not to an end. It's still going on, but to be able to move forward. And it was then when I listened to Angela and felt her pain and her tears, that I remembered something Robin Wall Kimmerer says. That Mother Earth is still giving, even when she's hurt. And that was a sentence when I read it, it touched me, but now it really hit me. Because it's so true. And when we are able to connect with the still healthy connection that the earth is offering, then maybe we could activate our ability to feel and grow in a positive way, and to flourish again, or give some impulses, every one of us, into a healing process. So that's not this spiral of negative images and contraction, but of growth, the different growth from the one we created during the last centuries. So
Thank you, Bea. Thank you for sharing your process of kind of feeling that contraction, feeling the grief, needing to go private, and then coming to the group space. And, again, Angela's tears opening up for a lot of us, this shared grieving. And people from other cultures, indigenous culture, look at us and say, this strange idea of grieving alone, like what a strange idea, and how we're conditioned to that and feel that then when we cry, we need to hide, and you feeling that and saying, oh, how good it is to grieve together. And also bringing in that, Mother Earth is hurt. The earth is hurt, and there's pain, and there's still so much giving and generosity in the lab that Gosha and I are co-facilitating. Enrique is participating. Some of the people here are participating. We had a Council of All Beings where we invited voices from nature. And we were all so touched by the generosity that Earth, that the animals, the plants, the forests, and so on still have towards us. Now both is true, both is there. Thank you. Kosha, back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Jens. And I actually wonder whether the two of us might just stay here to, to hold a space together for anybody who might still want to join us, to share, but also to, I'm just very touched by how deeply people have shared, and also feeling the grief that is here in the space. Also noticing the intensity that it is for people to be here. Just appreciating your voice here, Gabrielle. And it's also a lot to read. If you do want to come online and share here, you'd also be very welcome, and I'll read more later. Yeah, and maybe we complete with you, Didi and Sarah, just two more voices to complete for us today. And just the moment that Vera said that she felt the tears coming and then she needed to go private. So touching for me to feel that, and I think we all know that when the real pain, the deep pain, the heartbreak arises in us, that we feel we need to hide that from each other, that it makes us too weak, too vulnerable to stay visible, and how much that has been part of this culture that we've created, where we've learned to harden and to hide the trauma and the grief. And this question of how can we create spaces where we can... Gabrielle can't find the hand button. Sunita. If you can help. Yeah, and how learning to grieve together and also learning how to just share where we are and bringing our grief out and expressing it, how that can really be a doorway into also what Vera, what you then brought about this, finding the unique agency, so that hope is not something abstract, but hope grows in us when we find our contribution. Then our conviction and our hope comes back. So Dee Dee, let's start with you and we'll just hear briefly from you.
Thank you, everyone. Just really appreciating that you brought in Thomas's words to you, Kasha and Jens, this morning. There's something here that if we could, we would, touches another layer of sorrow for me. That a layer that seems like I've overlaid with anger and rage. It's really been showing up for me lately, like with the news, like some disaster, bomb, and there's always languaging around the loss of human life, and yet so disconnected is any conversation or inclusion about the soil, the trees, the water, the animals. Like the rest of life is so excluded from these news reports. And for me, that just brings such a rage, like a scream for me. And so holding this place of if we could, we would, just, it touches another layer of sorrow, but it also brings a certain ease and relief in my system.
Yeah, thank you, Dee Dee. Me too. It opens up my heart to also be compassionate with us. And through that also, we heard the they and me, like the more the we are this is where we are. And another thing Thomas says in his more mystical teachings is, in the Christian Judaic religion, there are these 7 days of creation, and the 6th day is when humans are being created. He says, we're still in the 6th day. It's not over. So this is also part of our human evolution. We're going through a lot, and we're not done. And that also opens up to my compassion. Like if we could, we would, and we're not there yet. But we need to do this kind of work and receive the feedback also from the earth to understand the evolutionary impulses to act on. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Gabrielle, maybe we can go to you next. We only have 4 more minutes, so we'll need to keep it short. Gabrielle, can you unmute? Wrong. Yes, there you are.
Okay. Thank you, Francesca, for telling me where the button is. I didn't find it. Thank you so much for you too for this meeting. It is so helpful. Yes, and what Jens told us about the water and the connectiveness of all, I find it is a wonderful means to heal, because if we have 14 days the water in ourselves and we heal our inner irgendwie, I think this can help the world also to heal. And I found the meditation so wonderful, and thank you so much. Imagine if so many people just do this every day, or many people just do this once a week. The effect is tremendous. Yeah, I think there is hope, even if there's a lot of grief. But I think grief can be also very helpful, because it awakens a little bit from the numbness.
Thank you, Gabrielle. And it's actually amazing because you speak to there's a Japanese community, for instance, where the practice really is to bless the water. And we could all come from this call to bless the waters as they flow through us, and bless the waters around us, learning about this not without our blessing, not the
Yes, this
water.
Jens thing was really wonderful. So many information I didn't know, and I have learned a lot already, but this is a miracle.
Beautiful. Thank you, Gabrielle.
Yes, you're welcome.
Over to you, Sarah.
Yeah. What I wanted to share is what has been living in me is the word reverence. And it has been coming through so strong that I could start crying about it. And I'm one who's always loved nature, always done hikes, skied, you name it. And this is something that is so much beyond even that. And what has come to me is that I'm not alone with my reverence, that I am joining others. And that as I feel that inside and that expression of reverence, I know that I'm with others that are also in reverence.
Yeah, beautiful. And I think that is the perfect way. You know, it's like life as a prayer that we complete the call with your words, Sarah. Thank you so much to all three of you. Didi, Sarah, Gabrielle, and also just to notice the diversity of nature here within our group call, that each person who comes online brings such a unique energy and entrance door and unique way of being. So thank you three for your unique way of being present here with us today. Yeah, and Jens, before we have a few announcements, just huge gratitude to you. As always, it's really wonderful to have and today especially the marine biologist in you with us. Yeah, thank you so much for bringing your love for the world present here with us.
Thank you, Kasha, and thank you, everybody. I'm deeply touched and feel the water in me very alive, through the connection we had and back into all the waters that we connected to. And the depth of the sharing really has touched me. And you talked about there's hope and agency, and I feel that this is agency, what we're doing here, and I feel hopeful.
Yeah, thank you. And we're so delighted to also let you know that this is really the beginning, because the year of November is traditionally for us, it's like a month of witnessing, because we usually travel to the UN climate conference, which takes place sometimes early December, end of November. This year it's November. And from the 15th to the 21st of November, you're invited to join us for a really unique time of storytelling from leaders that are loving their way passionately into climate justice, but also luminaries from the global movement to heal individual, ancestral, and collective trauma as it shows up in our relationship to nature. And you're all really warmly invited to join us for that. And also, we want to invite you to our next community call, which is with Christina Bethel, a truly amazing, wonderful, well-known scientist who consults in the US government on trauma-informed approaches. And she will share with us understanding the roots of fragmentation. Really speaking about adverse childhood experiences and how the knowledge that comes out about how we can heal as humans is directly connected to the knowledge about how we can heal the climate crisis. Yeah, healing. Another thing that Thomas has been saying is that actually, and not just Thomas, but Indigenous leaders around the world, is that we are creating our inner realities, our inner world around us. And what we're seeing happening on the planet is actually a reflection of what is happening within us. And so that the inner healing, bringing back health, love, care to our inner world is part, growing our inner soil is part of bringing back the abundance to the soils of the planet and the abundance to the living systems around us. So thank you all for being with us here today. And yeah, take care of yourself. We can only do this work if we resource ourselves well. So go and give yourself a big hug, dance to your favorite music, have a wonderful cup of tea with a friend, and kiss the ocean, jump into the river, drink a beautiful glass of water, and enjoy the next rain that falls from the clouds in the sky. Thank you all for being part of these cycles, and thank you, Jens, for being with us tonight. Not without our blessing. Be blessed.